Hello my bookworms, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. My name is Sydney. In today's video, we're going to be chatting about all the books that I read in the month of May. So hey, what's up? How are you? I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with me for a little bit. May treated me pretty well. So I hope to have 10 books total read by the end of May. I still have a couple days left to finish my current read, which is Black Cake by Charmaine Wilkerson. So hopefully I will have this done by the end of the month, and that will be an even 10 books, which I am really excited about. I hope your guys' May treated you as well as it treated me. I found a new favorite book, a lot of 4 stars, and really only one read that I didn't really love. So let's just get on into it and chat about all the different titles. Book of the Month is a super popular and fast-growing online book service for readers, whose mission is to support new and emerging authors while helping readers find books that they love. The team over at Book of the Month vets hundreds of books every single month and curates a list of 5 to 7 books for us to choose from so that we can spend less time researching and more time reading. A fabulous thing about Book of the Month is that it is risk-free. If for whatever reason you're not vibing with the choices, you can skip that month at no extra cost and pick up next month exactly where you left off. I have 2 of the choices here with me that are eligible for you to choose as well. The first book is Inkblood Sister Scribe by Emma Torres, and this book is about 2 estranged half-sisters tasked with guarding their family's library of magical books. They must work together to unravel a deadly secret at the heart of their collection, a tale of familial loyalty and betrayal, and the pursuit of magic and power. Any book with a magical library and like life and death circumstances. The other book that I chose is Banyan Moon by Tao Tai. Loved this cover, was immediately drawn to it, and it is a sweeping, evocative debut novel following 3 generations of Vietnamese American women, revealing families' inherited burdens, buried secrets, and unlikely love stories. This book spans decades and continents, from 1960s Vietnam to the wild swamplands of the Florida coast, and it's a deeply moving story of mothers and daughters, the things we inherit and the things we choose to make out of that inheritance. All of these are things that I really love, and I'm truly just so excited to give this author a shot because this synopsis sounds great. Once again, if neither of these sound like your vibe, check out the link in my description to use my code BOOKWORM and get your first box for $9.99 of any of the other choices that are available. Thank you again to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back into the wrap up. Okay, hi. Move you down again. One of the first books I read this past month was The Verifiers by Jane Peck. This is one that I have been wanting to read since it came out. Received it in Book of the Month, and I have been in love with this cover ever since. It's just been very eye-catching and intriguing, but a mystery story is something that I think I have to be in the mood for. And this past month, for whatever reason, murder mysteries sounded really interesting and very fun for me. So I picked up 2 this month actually, so we'll get there. But The Verifiers is the first one. I don't know if this is considered a cozy mystery, but it felt pretty cozy to me. I had a lot of fun with this one. This was a book that as soon as I finished it, I immediately looked up the author. I immediately did a deep dive on when her next book is coming out. And apparently there is another book that comes after this one, but I don't know if it actually has a release date or anything yet, but I will for sure be reading it whenever it does come out. In the story, our main character Claudia basically works for an online dating detective agency. It's basically like a private investigator for your Tinder date because you don't trust them. And this story is surrounding one person in particular coming in with a couple different people that she wants the veracity team to check out. And there's murder, there's mystery, there's deceit, there's infidelity, there's a lot. There's a lot that goes on in this. I had a lot of fun with it, and it takes a really interesting look on love in today's time with all of the technology that goes into like finding your perfect match and things like that. So a lot of different angles from this book, and I just loved it. Really loved our main character in this one. She is a young queer woman hiding her queerness from her parents because she doesn't think that she'll be accepted, and kind of a like bah humbug when it comes to love. Like she just doesn't really think that she has time for it or that she wants it. So she's a little bit hermity, but she loves mysteries. And even though this job is a secret to her family because it's definitely not prestigious enough for them, she falls headfirst into this case and becomes very obsessive about it. Has to figure out what's really going on, and she upends like a whole industry, a whole entire situation, and it was a lot of fun. I ended up giving this one like a 4 or 4.5 out of 5. The next book that I read is The Last Tale Tale of the Flower Bride by Roshni Chokshi. This was my book club pick for last month, and so I read it at the beginning of this month, so it could be very fresh for the live discussion. This book to a T I would compare to House of Hollow meets Mexican Gothic. Like absolutely 100% if you like both of those or you like the vibes of those, read this book because it was a ride. In this story, we're following two main characters. I think, what's his name? Oh yeah, we don't ever know his name. He's literally just called the bridegroom. And within the story, whenever anyone's interacting with him, his name isn't ever said. That is such a strange concept to me. But he's one of our main characters, and then our other main point of view is Indigo and Azure. Indigo is the heiress to a large fortune with this big house, which is where like the Mexican Gothic vibes come in, all right? The House of Hollow vibes come in from Indigo and her best friend Azure. We have two kind of timelines within this story. The today with Indigo and the bridegroom wed and dealing with current situation of Indigo's grandmother or aunt, I believe, passing away. But there's this whole situation with their marriage that he's not allowed to ask her questions. Like it's supposed to be like a surface level and fairy tale-esque marriage. And then the other timeline is Indigo and Azure as their kids growing up in this magical home, thinking that they're gonna grow up and be accepted into like the Fae. And it's all very, again, fairy tale-esque. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 because within writing the two different point of views in this story, I do feel like I really loved the writing and the story from the bridegroom's point of view. When he was speaking, it was very lyrical, poetic, flowery, almost reminded me of the Starless Sea. And when it was Azure's point of view, I definitely felt like I didn't have to pay attention as much. There wasn't as much going on. It felt very streamlined and easy to follow, which both of them are easy to follow, but I felt like I wanted to pay attention more when the bridegroom was talking because the writing was just different. It was more beautiful, but ultimately I still had a really good time with it, so I stuck with a 4 out of 5. The next book that I read is Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. This book, I was like cautiously looking forward to it because it is a genre that I don't read from often. It is historical fiction, but it won awards. Like people love this book. So I was like, hey, I've enjoyed historical fiction in the past. I'll probably like this. I didn't really like this. This is the lowest rated book of the month and I think it clocks in around a 3. Listen. Man, I don't even like feel like I have the energy to describe this synopsis. That's how I feel about it. Basically, we have our main character, she's Elizabeth Zott. And let me just, okay, because this is a huge factor of why I didn't like this. Okay, the synopsis says, it's early 1960s and her all-male team at Hastings Research Institute takes a very unscientific view of equality, except for one, Calvin Evans, the lonely, brilliant Nobel Prize nominated grudge holder who falls in love with, of all things, her mind. True chemistry results. It does not. When I tell you that I was searching high and low for this chemistry that Elizabeth and Calvin had, I was tired of looking for it. Like, where was it? That was a big thing for me in this book because in the beginning, and I don't want to like spoil anything, and I won't spoil anything, but in the first quarter of the book, the chemistry that is talked about, it's only written as saying they would make love and then stay up to the wee hours of the morning talking about like chemistry and science problems. But that's it. Like in their day-to-day interactions, it was still just all professional because they worked at the same institute. I know it's not a romance book, but there wasn't any believable romance for me, or chemistry to say the very least. It was just really kind of aggravating for me because I was like, I don't believe it. Now, there are so many discussions within this book that are of note. The fact that men back then, still today, think that they can use their physical power and, you know, status to exploit and get any way that they want with women. So this book talks about the inequality, it talks about sexual assault, it talks about all of these things that are super important, still going on, you know. Even with all of these important discussions, I just wasn't having a good time. And flipping through, remembering how this book ended, it did have some fun reveals. I do think that the story is good, but from cover to cover, it just was not for me. I ended up giving it a 3. Now, on the other hand, let us chat about one of my new favorite books. I'm very surprised. I wanted this to be the outcome of reading this book, but I really didn't expect it because, well, let me just tell you, it's If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. I love this book. Like easy 5 out of 5. It was a 4 up until the last like 100 pages and it easily became a 5. Like, wow. Wow, wow, wow. The reason that I thought that I would like it, but I didn't think that I would for sure love it, is because it is heavy Shakespeare. Like lots of pretentious Shakespeare quoting, because our main characters are in Delacour Classical Conservatory. Basically, they're theater majors, okay? And they're studying Shakespeare. They're quoting Shakespeare back and forth within their normal conversations. It is a pretty pretentious environment, all right? Which isn't a problem for me. I like pretentious, I do. Pretentious with a flair of like flowery and like atmospheric, moody writing, like I love it, but I don't know Shakespeare. I just purely have never read a play, don't know anything about it, so I knew that I wouldn't understand the references, but I do understand enough of like the old English way of speaking to like kind of get by, you know? Like it's a whole nother language pretty much. And I was just worried that not knowing what plays or situations they're referencing when they're talking in Shakespeare, is that talking in Shakespeare? I don't know. I was worried that that would take away from my enjoyment, and it didn't. It didn't. It was so phenomenal, and I truly went into a book hangover after finishing this because I just wanted to reread it. I mentioned that this is a group of people in their final year at this theater school, and this is a retrospectively told story pretty much, because there were 7 friends at the beginning of this final year, and one of them ends up dying. Our main character, who is telling the story, went away for 10 years in prison, paying for a crime that he did not commit, or did he? Did he have a hand in it? Like it's a whole thing, all right? That's the mystery, is like unraveling what actually happened 10 years ago. And it's told in such a beautiful, theatrical, dark academia, pretentious way that I just adored. I ate it up. 5 out of 5. The next book that I read is Severance by Ling Ma, and this one was my buddy read pick for this month actually. So I have an exclusive like full book talk on it over on my Patreon. So I'll do a quick little one here. Severance by Ling Ma is a like epidemic pandemic story where our main character Candace is living in New York. She runs this like anonymous blog called The New York Ghost in her free time, like documenting random photos and situations within New York. Don't get excited, that's a very small part of the story. I wish it was much more, but I digress. As this epidemic is starting, people are fleeing the city, and Candace is recruited by the company she works for a lot of money to stay behind and run this sort of like physical day-to-day at the office. She doesn't have family, she doesn't really hang out with people, like she says yes. So we're following Candace as she watches New York become this ghost city, and watches as the epidemic and whatever I think it's considered an epidemic in this book, but she's there watching all of it unfold and going through it. Our other timeline is soon in the future, where she is following this dude named Bob and other survivors to this place called the Facility, which is where they're going to try to build like a new community for survivors. And ultimately, I gave this book, what, a 4? I think I gave it a 3.5 to a 4. This book does a lot of things really well. The atmosphere and emotion that Ling Ma was able to capture within this epidemic story of the vast loneliness and terror that comes around in this type of situation, like seeing a city turn into a ghost city, is something that I physically can relate to, because I never stopped working during the pandemic, like because I'm an ICU nurse. So I would still be driving to work every day and see literally nothing going on in my city. Like it is overwhelming to read it in such a beautifully put way to where I can be like, yes, exactly. So the writing and the atmosphere and emotions that this book evoked in the leading up to the pandemic epidemic taking over the country was really, really well done. However, this book is told in dual timelines, so it flips back and forth between those two situations that I mentioned. I truly think that this book would have been better told in a linear timeline, and you can disagree. That's just what I think that I would have enjoyed more. So I didn't really like that. I also hated that there was no quotations. That's just annoying. And ultimately, I truly, even though the emotions and everything were written really well, I was bored. I was just bored, and I'm mad about it too, but it's like a 3.5, 4. It's in there, like a 3.5 to a 4. This next book that I read, I caught it, is Imposter Syndrome by Kathy Wang. This is like a woman in tech, foreign spy espionage whirlwind of a story. I've been wanting to read this since it came out, and it didn't disappoint. We have a couple main characters in this one. One is Julia Lerner, who is now the COO of Tangerine, which is this big like tech company. And then we have Alice Liu, who is a first-generation Chinese American, who one day was performing a server check and she notes some unusual activity. And now the situation at hand is that she thinks that it's a Julia Lerner herself doing some shady shit within the company. But Alice is just like this like grunt, this nobody in the company, and who is she to bring hell upon Julia Lerner, who is like this icon in the industry, right? So it's this whole thing. It was really interesting. I've never read like a foreign espionage sort of story. So first and foremost, I just thought it was an interesting thing that I was experiencing. I felt like it was written really well. We got multiple perspectives, both of them, as well as her handler, who was like her contact point in between Russia and, you know, her job in the United States. The beginning of the story was a little bit strange because we start with Julia Lerner as a kid in the orphanage where she was found. So we get this sort of like dual perspective of how she came from where she was and now she lives this like lush, lavish lifestyle that she's not willing to give up. Even when the things that Russia is asking of her, she no longer wants to do. So it's this whole thing. I had a lot of fun. I gave this a 4 out of 5. The next book that I read was Death by Dumpling by Vivian Sheehan. I actually just finished this one today. And again, I don't know if the Verifiers is considered cozy mystery, but this is my legit first cozy mystery. And I'm telling you, like, I had a great reading month. I've been saying like, and it was fun because it was fun. Like I had a lot of 4-star reads, which I'm not mad about. And this one was another 4-star read. Our main character in this book is Lana, and she's working at her parents' noodle shop begrudgingly. She never thought that she would actually end up there, but she walked out of her job and said, I quit, not really thinking that they would let her quit, but they did. So now she's working at her parents' noodle shop. And ultimately, in this little community that they have, someone gets murdered, death by dumpling, and Lana goes full like detective mode trying to figure out who did it because she's kind of implicated. This book again was a lot of fun. The writing was nothing super special, and I do have a vlog coming out where I discuss this book in great detail, which will be out probably after this video, but I definitely plan on continuing with this series. Okay, the next book that I read was Happy Place by Emily Henry, and if you know me, you know I'm a big Emily Henry fan. Big, love her so much. And I'm kind of sitting here struggling with a review on this, honestly. Don't get me wrong, I still loved it, but it didn't hit me like Beach Read or Book Lovers did. And I'm still not entirely sure why. I'm not sure if this is a story that I have to reread for it to make more sense to me, but there were, well, should I tell you what it's about? Basically, our two main characters are Harriet and Wynne, and their group of friends go to this little beach house in Maine every summer for a vacation. Except this year, they are lying through their teeth because Harriet and Wynne broke up 6 months ago, and they still haven't told anyone. But the cottage is for sale, so this is the last time they'll be able to do this vacation together with their friends. They can't bear to break their best friends' hearts, so they'll fake it for one more week. There's fake dating, there's drama and heartbreak, and it's devastating, but like, I just... This is where what I'm about to say, like, I might need to just reread the book because maybe I missed things. I don't know. Why they broke up still doesn't entirely make sense to me. Like, I still think that it could have been fine if they just freaking talked about things more. Like, maybe that's why it bothers me, because it feels like miscommunication in some ways to like bring them to the point where they are in the start of this book. And miscommunication is like the thing that I just despise with my whole self. Definitely just, it didn't hit me like her other books. And I shouldn't be comparing them, I guess, because this still had phenomenal banter. Friendship dynamics were fun. The chemistry between Harriet and Wynne was really great. I did love the sort of like lovers to enemies to lovers sort of situation, but it's just that key point that like, I feel like all of this could have been avoided. I don't know. That's why I gave it a 4 out of 5, which is still a great rating, so no one come for me, but like, maybe I'm just confused and need to read it again. I don't know. Very cute book though. Wow, very cute. Avi has an itch. Did you get it? Do you want me to get it for you? Okay, and now the last book that I read this month, I don't have the physical copy right now, a friend is borrowing it, but it is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. And this is the same exact situation, okay? Yours Truly. I read because I read Part of Your World last month, and it's a favorite romance like of all time. It's up there with Beach Read for me. I loved it. And so I was very excited to get into Yours Truly because it's involving the main character of Part of Your World. It's her best friend in this one. So we're following Bree and, is it Daniel? Daniel is in Part of Your World. Hold on, what's this dude's name? Brianna and Jacob Maddox. Yours truly did a lot of things really well for me. If you know me, you know I love like a pen pal and like note situation happening, and that was going on within the story. Our two main characters are working in the same emergency department as doctors. In the beginning, they're kind of vying for the same promotion, but Jacob didn't know, he doesn't actually want the job, but Brianna thinks that he's being brought in as like direct competition for this promotion. So there's a little bit of tension there, but ultimately they become friends. They start writing each other's notes and leave them on their charting stations. Super fun. Absolutely loved that. But this book gets pretty deep as well, just like Happy Place did. Like there are some heavier topics discussed in Happy Place, just like there are some heavy topics discussed in Yours Truly. Yours Truly has really good like anxiety, over-analyzing representation. Like I really loved how Jacob was written. The storyline itself had a lot of really good like explanations and one-liners in describing, you know, like random important life situations and regarding his anxiety and how he views situations and overanalyzes things. But because of these things, miscommunication happens, and it's just, I just freaking hate it. I hate it, even though I know it's unavoidable sometimes, and I know that like miscommunication is something that just like is normal within relationships every now and then, but when it's so painfully obvious, it hurts me. The family dynamics within their respective families were so fun. Jacob's family was like so chaotic and crazy, and his grandfather that's rolling around in a wheelchair with oxygen, like begging for cigarettes and being really mean when you don't give him one. Like it's funny. And then Brianna's family, like her little brother is waiting for a kidney donation, and a very overbearing mother, but with so much love. And I don't know, I really liked it, but it wasn't as good as Part of Your World for me and what I like. So I gave it a 4 out of 5, which is fine. That's it. That's all I have for you today. So 9 books, hopefully 10 books by the end of the month, which by the way, Black Cake is going well. I'm enjoying the writing. I'm not that far in, only like 20% or so, but I'm enjoying it so far. Writing is good. I'm just waiting for it all to make a little bit more sense, you know, because obviously there's different timelines and people that are going to cross paths later, but I don't see how yet. So I'm really just, you know, taking it as it comes and enjoying it. But that's it. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with me for a little bit. And once again, thank you so much to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. Don't forget to check out the link in my description and use my code bookworm to get your first box for $9.99. If you are still watching, then leave the eyeglass emoji down below in the comments. And while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. I always appreciate your support. And of course, be kind to... What? Be kind to one another, and happy reading. Bye.